My guest today is Virginia Heffernan, journalist, cultural critic, and the author of the book that has probably shaped my thinking about the internet more than any other. Magic and Loss, which I read 10 years ago when it first came out and have thought about ever since, argues that technology, it's not the death of culture or humanity. It's just what happens next. That idea has given me tremendous comfort, especially as someone who came of age in the first wave of online self-invention and is now trying to make sense of what comes after youth, relevance, and the version of myself that I once thought was permanent. So today, Virginia and I are talking about nostalgia, aging, identity, and how to meet change without treating it like it's a catastrophe. I'm Jordan Reid, and this is Like Me. Virginia Heffernan, welcome to Like Me.
Thank you, Jordan. It's so good to be here.
This is a huge honor for me having you on because I don't know, well, there's no way you would know this. So I read your book when it came out, and it had such a profound impact on me that in the years since, I find myself referencing you all the time in
Wow.
daily conversations, in my writing. I mentioned you on the podcast a couple weeks ago. And so I wanted to sort of start by saying, like, sort of what about your book has like resonated and whether I got it right, more or less.
Okay. That's great. I mean, it is 10 years since the publication, which someone just reminded me of. And it's fun to talk about it again and sort of check my work, like see how the internet
Yeah,
panned out, because there have been some changes.
there's been a couple of changes in the past 10 years. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
surprised you're getting a lot of new interest in it because of AI, I assume, and stuff
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
So Magic and Loss, what I took from it is that it's not that the evolution of the internet specifically, but technology more generally, it's not bad or good. It's just what happens next.
Mhm.
And I have taken a lot of solace in that over the years because I'll start to feel nostalgic for an earlier time or start to panic about the way things are changing. And then I remind myself what you said. I always think about what you said about emojis, like how they've become part of our language. They are. And
Yeah.
that's not bad or good. It's literally just like what happened.
Yeah.
So what am I missing here?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, when sort of we were first when as a kid, when you're first learning about evolution, there's
Mhm.
a little bit of a warning against various older types of imagined evolution. So one is Lamarckian, where acquired traits are inherited. So I have dyed blonde hair because my mother dyed her hair blonde. Is sort of how I think about it. So like the things,
Okay.
right? Your
I
parent,
mean, same, but
yeah, it's
and
weird,
now
right?
we're all blondes in this family. No, we're not.
Yes, Lamarckian inheritance, it works. But anyway, but Darwin sort of showed that wasn't true, that, you weren't born to become a priest because, your uncle had become a priest, or that wasn't that part of life wasn't inherited. Those traits weren't inherited. But the other one was teleology, so that things evolve toward an end. And so you see this in some religious thinking, like the arc of history is long but bends for justice. But it's
Hmm.
not quite true where all this is going. Like, I think that was sort of Darwin's idea that we sort of evolve so that we survive. But kind of when you get to a certain point, it's whatever survives, survives. So sometimes you can look at a kind of technology. I think a lot of us looked at the metaverse and tried VR, say, over and over again, and just had this kind of feeling like, I wouldn't put all my money on this. Like, in a very simple way, this is like making me sick, and I'm not that into it. And I understand gamers are into it, but unless you feel a big head of steam with a new technology, like this is endlessly pot- potentially interesting, and it's just opening up so many new possibilities for human flourishing, people just don't go toward it. And so that's one thing that didn't happen. But then there are other things you look at, like like, God help us, chatbots. And kind of the first time you get in there with ChatGPT or Claude, a few years ago, you just started thinking like, okay, I get it. I get it. And lots of other people got it too. And that's sort of where we are. And I feel like once you look at something and you know in your bones that this is going to be something worth doing, that's going to add value to your life, that's exciting and that's thrilling and that feels like the future, it's just a question of trying to enjoy the ride, instead of perpetually burdening ourselves with imagining what life could be without it.
Yes, because I mean, this is a kind of big question, but like, how does hope factor in? Because I
Yeah.
think especially for our generation, um, these new technologies, it's like it's part nostalgia for what was before, and also partially terror of
Yeah.
having to do a new thing that we're midlife people are not like flipping careers and totally pivoting
Right.
to accommodate these new technologies. So are you talking more about that excitement with like a younger generation, or do you think that's possible for everybody to experience?
I mean, the subtitle of the book is The Internet as Art, and art is a word that really trips people up. But I did want to think of technology as not just a kind of narrowcast source of careers and or social life or startups and business propositions, or even the fine-tuning, tinkering tech part of it. I wanted to think of it as something that could generate awe and wonder in us, and that sort of independent of whether something's going to be useful enough, especially for, our like poor old careers. um, I wanted to see it first as something just that could, yeah, generate like childlike excitement. As you know from the book, I was on the internet in ARPANET era through a weird program where I, at only 9 years old, plugged in 1979 to networked computing, and that feeling I had that we could all be connected, and or that all the information in the world was crashing into my telephone all at once, like with the fax sound. Yeah, the
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And just what is happening in that signal and what is happening, that is just a source of wonder, and almost a source of just an awe at the universe, like kind of like um, staring into the night sky. So, as for how, like, the short-term anxiety about how, or the very real anxiety about where our career's going, are we gonna die? What are we gonna do with our families? Is everybody okay? How am I gonna pay the mortgage? Joey Ito, who used to run MIT's Media Lab, explained to me this really interesting thing about his experience with the internet, and he's a lifelong Buddhist. He's Japanese, and he meditates regularly. And he said sometimes after hours of meditation, he will decide that the US government, the future of the world, the internet itself is just extremely, extraordinarily interesting. And he's so just rapturous to be living in this time. Then he goes out and looks at, in his case, his family, or contemplates his career, and the world just comes crashing back that it has all these obligations,
Yes. Yes,
right?
I was watching, the new oh gosh, oh, Dinosaurs. It's like
Okay.
the
Yeah.
the new Netflix, I think it's on Netflix, documentary, and I was watching it with my kids, and, like, it's when, huge populations of dinosaurs go completely extinct, we were
Yeah.
like, "Is this sad?" It's like, it's sad for those individual dinosaurs
Yes.
who were
Yes.
there when the meteor hit or when they couldn't reach the bushes anymore to eat. But is it sad?
Yes.
No. It's remarkable and magical, and, like, does the arc of humanity bend towards justice? No, it bends towards change. It just bends towards
Yes.
something
That's it.
else.
That's
And
it.
I swear to you, your book gave me that, like, that is where I developed this mindset and this perspective, and
I love
that makes
that
so
about the
much sense.
dinosaurs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's like it's crushingly sad to see the scene of the ankylosaurus that, and but it's also like, and then all the because these were extinct, now the ecology changed, and now these things grow up and woo, like,
Yes,
and when you
yes.
think about it in that way, it becomes very hard to be upset about, like, what the government's doing today because you're like, it's not that it doesn't matter, it just is
It's
the
just a
thing.
scale. That's it. It's a scale question, and, on the one hand, right? So you say, if you think about the longer arc of history, including the dinosaurs, you have a different perspective, and also if you
Mhm.
think of the night sky, or you think of, what the billions of people on the internet are doing. I mean, they're just sometimes I have it's like just very simple thoughts like, it is this moment all around the world for every human under the sun, this exact moment. And just something like that that has been crystallized for me by by networked computing, by the experience of so many of just access to so many different kinds of human knowledge and human achievements and just humans themselves. And, I just think of, we have so much nostalgia, but, I studied 19th century novels in graduate school, and just the levels of loneliness and parochialism that, afflicted most of the earth. And, when you talk to my son's girlfriend is from Chennai in South India and grew up with like in very rough circumstances. And I said, "How in the world did you?" She's at an Ivy League college now, and I said, "How in the world did you acquire that much education?" And she said, "Have you heard of the internet?" The first time she wanted to read a poem, she got a computer, and she went to like
Mhm.
a local place where you could get, 15 minutes on the internet. And she just downloaded a bunch of Robert Lowell poems and, you know, got them and memorized them and studied English that way. And so while we're complaining a lot about what phones are doing to bourgeois kids in the United States, it's still serving this enormous purpose to connect people um, with, the best that's been thought and said in the world.
It is absolutely true. My 14-year-old just taught himself Spanish using an app, and he just picked up piano, and it's because of the lessons of video games and like the complex common, like
Right.
draws a direct line there. He's like, I have to do all of these different sequences with these two different hands all at once, and
Yeah.
that translates to piano. So uh,
Amazing. I mean, right? And and then there's, I just was looking at TikTok this morning, and there are a couple of new satirists, political satirists, and just they think of things that I could never think of. Or, they're like just I'm not gonna get too deep into them because I could stay there all day, but illuminating what's going on in the world from the point of view of that all important American tradition of satire. Like it can platform so many people who would have
mhm.
been making jokes alone in their rooms and now can kind of share them with the world. So, that's just sounding a bit sentimental, but
It's not. We need more of that because it's happening. Like, no matter
yeah,
how upset you are, it is happening, and choosing it is a choice to see the
yeah,
opportunity and the joy in these developments is, oh, it's such a relief.
yeah,
The big part of this project that I'm doing with this podcast and also the book I'm writing
yeah,
is examining early influencer culture. So
yeah,
that first generation of mostly women who created this monster economy that we're living in now, and what happened to
yeah.
them, because it's not great.
It's great. That's
It's
such a
not.
great, yeah,
And that's like, but on a granular level, to me, to her, it has been very difficult to iterate with this along with the speed with which the internet is iterating.
yes,
And so it's like there's a lot of anxiety, and there's a lot of nostalgia. So how do you see this theory applying to social media, which everyone, of course, the automatic
right,
is like, it's terrible. These kids
yeah.
today, like, ah.
The idea of influencers, when I was that word didn't exactly exist. In fact, I just did
Yeah.
an interview with Slate about Lonely Girl 15, who was who was like, that was a fictional project by some aspiring filmmakers, but it also tread the line between fiction and a kind of influencer. It wasn't clear
Mhm.
exactly what was going on with her. Um, but um but then later the word exists, and there's some dovetailing with reality television.
Yep.
So where I was reviewing a lot of reality TV at the New York Times, because I was the second critic, there's an A critic and a B critic. The A critic gets to
Okay.
review like the premiere of The Wire, and the B critic gets to do reality TV, which was great with me because
Yes,
right,
please. Yes.
reality TV is so interesting, and also it walks so what I had written on in graduate school was realist fiction that sort of purports to represent reality as it is, but is of course bound by all these formal rituals and traditions and habits and very formal in all these ways, even as it's supposed to show exactly how real people live. So the same is true in reality TV and sort of as shows like The Hills got and Real Housewives got like just increasingly aestheticized with like individual producers on each person and so far away from documentary. And then also on Real Housewives, people doing just a small thing. But when I went on the sets of reality shows, I couldn't believe how much union work they had gotten people like Bethany Frankel and some of the housewives to do themselves. So they were doing their own makeup, their own clothes, and using their houses for sets. Some of I think the Orange County one and some of the California ones had a lot of real estate. Like the pitch from Bravo to the Real Housewives was you can pitch your husband's real estate company. Like, we'll do a video pass through of these houses and hopefully you can sell them because they just weren't paying them. So they were
Hmm.
having them there the same way you would not pay someone to be on your news show or in your documentary about coal mining, right?
Hmm.
But they were asking them to act, hit all their marks, take direction, show up on time, do events that had been staged for them for maximum fireworks, and create drama, which is exactly what, right? Dramatists, when you study drama is the work of people who write plays. So they were having to write their own lines. They were having to live their own experience. And by the time, before the book came out, years before the book came out, I think 2011, I quit watching reality television because there'd been one too many people had gone to jail on it, including Teresa Giudice and other people
Oh,
from
yeah.
Real Housewives. And then
Yeah.
also, there were suicides.
Yeah.
And the earliest days of reality TV, which is just a lot to get into, and I know that's not exactly where we started, although some of these
There's a
people
very
there's a
big
huge
link.
crossover,
Very
right?
huge. Yes, huge crossover.
There was this show called An American Family on PBS where they got, I think it was like they got 1 million hours of film and then cut it down to, a series. And no one was acting in it because it was supposed to be fly on the wall documentary, but one of the people had a theatrical personality, Lance Loud, and ended up coming out of it as sort of a superstar because he knew how to play to the cameras. It's
Hmm.
amazing to watch now because a lot of the people, including some of the people on the show who talked about it later, said they just didn't know what to do. They're like, a lot of your life, you're just like sitting in a chair, not
Yeah.
making any expression, but you sort of are like very aware that the cameras kind of need you to do something or want you to look good for it. So, anyway, and
Oof.
the couple in the middle of that got divorced spectacularly. So they did provide the drama that the show needed, as do the Real Housewives at like an alarming rate. Like, it is crazy. You put cameras on a marriage, and it's just lethal to the marriage, as far as I can tell.
Oh, it
Uh,
is? I'm divorced.
oh,
I could tell you all about it.
I'm divorced too, but it wasn't so we weren't so much on camera, so I guess you can also have lethal to your marriage without.
You
Yeah.
can. No, but I actually do think that that camera presence, because we were filming ourselves a lot. I mean, it wasn't
Yeah.
a Bravo team, but anyway.
Then with, front-facing cameras, with
Mhm.
Instagram and so on, you have, um, m models who cut the photographer out of the system, right? Because they're their own subject, and
Yep.
they're doing selfies, and they have to look a certain way. Now we're so used to all this, right? Like, particular just your hands, your shoulders, a tripod, a little weird mic or whatever it is now. But who are having to do every single part, including the editing, including the I mean, one of these people should look at what a call sheet for a traditional show looks like, and it's endless. Like, they're feeding themselves, it's their own house, it's their, and they're expected that their influence will someday you can cash in on. The cashing in on is kind of dubious. And then it can turn into like a self-exploitation, which we've seen a lot. I mean, I feel for the influencers, like they fell into like they came to, I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but like we're all trying to make a living.
Mhm.
And there were, you know, there was this reality TV sort of way of looking at people in their lives that required a lot of the actors and required them to do all this work for themselves on the
Yes.
grounds that they would get in journalism, they say exposure, right? Or they'd
Uh-huh.
maybe get influence, and you
Right.
would have to do it for those things. And you just sort of thought, like, well, I'm already putting pictures of my kids on social media, so maybe I'll just film this whole day in the like family vlogs. Maybe I'll just film this day of taking them to the dentist or whatever. And then
Mhm.
it gets a little funny, and then you start getting into optimizing. And it's just hell on a normal life.
Yes, I started in 2009, which was like very, very early influencer culture, and
Yep.
experienced exactly what you refer to, like editor, model, photographer, wardrobe, makeup,
Yeah.
everything. And I come from the acting world, so I was aware of the volume of unpaid labor, later paid, but largely unpaid, that I was being asked to do. And it was interesting to me that it was so many young women, because there was such a culture of like, yes, just give me a chance, just give me a chance. And
Yeah.
just say yes to absolutely everything. And then that kind of became de rigueur for the industry.
Yeah.
So I think there's an argument to be made that there has been a lot of labor on unpaid labor on the backs of women throughout the centuries.
Yeah.
Um, but something that you brought up that I just thought about, we've all like acclimated to this, to the
Hmm.
screen, and
Yeah.
we know what angles are thanks to influencer culture. But
Yes.
my daughter, she doesn't have a YouTube channel or anything, but if you put a camera on her,
Yeah.
she'll like she
Right.
knows how, but she knows how to the camera is a natural extension of her life
Yeah.
in a way, and her friends' lives, and they're not influencers. The culture has expanded so far outward from
Right.
the technical participants
Yeah.
into the greater culture. So
Right. Right.
what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think I don't know that it made it into the book, but I've written about sort of a mother's role partly selling their family,
You said, I
sorry.
had that
Yeah.
quote here,
Oh,
actually.
good. Yeah.
Yes, you said something akin to, like, now our children, at least we know that their job is, at least in part, to pose and to be a
Yes.
subject matter for the family content, essentially. Something
Yes, a
like that.
family sort of little business of presenting
Mhm.
itself, first to
Yes.
relatives, right? I
Yep.
remember taking the kids on vacations, when they were little, and just thinking, I've gotta get a great picture out of this because I've spent
Have
a
to.
lot right?
Yes.
Because 'Cause I've spent a lot on the vacation. One, they might forget it, So it needs to look like we're having a good time, and then I need to advertise it to the world as a good time, so to show that I'm, like, doing mothering well. Now, to frustratingly for me, but maybe good in the long run, my kids really both of them were really rejected technology, so, like, in that Alex P. Keaton, like, reject your mother's favorite thing way.
Of course.
So they read about at some point, and it's in that piece actually, that in France, you can sue your parents for like misuse of your image on social media. One of them ran into that sometime and said, no, you can't put pictures of us up. I would have definitely put pictures of them up. I still have a picture of my of little film on Facebook, which I rarely use, of my daughter wearing Google Glass and getting really
Oh, yeah.
disoriented, and I was like, "This is actually kind of unfair." Like, this is like taking a picture of your kid after the dentist. Like, she just, she looks a little I don't know. But how did you feel about how was it with your kids?
As they grew older, my influencer career was at its peak when they were like in the 6 to 10, like 4 to 10 range
Right.
area. And as they grew out of that and into more awareness of what was going on, I became increasingly uncomfortable
Mm,
with the performative aspect of it. And and now my son has said like a few years ago, he was like, I don't want to, just don't take pictures of me and put them on the internet. And I was like, okay, that's
yeah.
annoying because 'cause you're so cute and I want to, but
Yes,
because
right, right.
we still want to, not for money, just for like,
Yeah.
"Look at him, I'm so proud of him."
Yep.
Um, but no, I think I just interviewed a woman named Fortessa Latifi who wrote a wonderful book about children growing up in influencer families and
Mhm.
how it affected them, and she said that the content that of across the board and exponentially does best is children who are scared or hurt.
Oof.
I
Right,
know. For vloggers
right.
and family, like, the kid going to the dentist thing or the kid,
Mhm.
dealing with the loss of a family pet or
Mm.
stuff like that, and so that's where the evolution of where this has gone. I try to remember the lessons that
Mhm.
your work has taught me and be like, there is it's both and all,
Mhm. Mhm.
but it can feel a little bit apocalyptic at times.
Yeah, I wonder why that is. What do you make of that? That wanting to look at kids who are scared or hurt.
I mean, I think it's drama. I think we're just so
Yeah.
conditioned to want to fast forward to the part of the show that amps us up emotionally and like the
Right.
dopamine hit and the what's going to happen.
Mhm.
I mean, I have observed that my posts, if they're emotional and they're sad, they get
Mhm.
a ton very like crazily vulnerable. They get huge spikes in traffic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, what does that say about the human condition?
I mean, it may say that we are eager for catharsis. We don't want to see things that just look good, or also that we are like hungry for fiction. So, some of the ways I think that we sort of misunderstand the internet is when we think there's a way that people really are, and then there's this deceitful way that they are online, which is also
Mhm.
a mistake people will make about novels sometimes, which is like there's a thing that is not truth or lies, and that is fiction, right? So, like, to the extent that an influencer is in the process of self creation in front of our eyes and um, kind of gets it, like how they're doing it. I mean, for instance, the I've Had It women that make this news show. I don't know if you've seen it, but
Mm-mm.
they're doing it. Hassan Piker does it. You can tell when someone just owns the format and is making discoveries. I mean, I think Don Lemon's show is really good. There are a lot of right, good online Rachel Maddow's really good at the separate stuff that she does,
Mhm. Did you
off
notice I
camera.
tried a Rachel Maddow thing on you? I was literally thinking of Rachel Maddow. I was like, "I'm going to tell her what I think she said, and then I'm going to say, 'Was there anything I got wrong?'"
That is
'Cause
so,
I
oh
love
my
I
god.
love it.
Right.
I love how
I
she
mean,
starts things like that.
these are really interesting kinds of inquiry, and you wanna look at Rachel Maddow and get cues, like, as to how are we gonna react to, some particular crashing news event, and sometimes I try to do this on my podcast. Sometimes she does so well telling us, like, this is not something that we citizens should have to put up with, and
Mhm.
just making you feel it viscerally. And sometimes that emotion from her is really great. And is that fiction or fact? I'm sorry, is that a lie or is it? It's staged, right? I've gone on MSNBC. You spend a ton of time in makeup. You spend very little time on the content of what you're there to talk about. It's a performance, but at the same time, it serves this valuable purpose. And I think if when people read fiction, if they watch some of the great shows on TV, we probably saw the end of The Pit, which was an amazing cathartic season. When you say people want to see people who are hurt or crying, those actors who can do that catharsis for us are the people we should watch crying and afraid, who stabilize our nervous systems because they
Yes.
they give us a container to understand those things. And then we
Yes.
don't have to watch or savor in a sadistic way the suffering of real people. Um, I
I
mean,
tie
that's what
it so
acting
closely
is,
to
right? Drama is
yes.
serves a purpose. It's one of, drama predates novels. It's a Greek form.
Because it gives us that catharsis. I am a huge horror movie fan, and people
Oh,
find
yeah.
that odd, and I tie it very closely to anxiety because it's
Mm,
like, if I'm watching this thing that is activating all of my anxieties and nerves and fears, but in a safe space, and then the
yes.
catharsis, and then there's something like working through it in a safe way, I
Yes.
find very relaxing.
Absolutely, absolutely. There was this funny time where now around the time of, I guess, Pizzagate, like the proto QAnon stuff, I was wondering why the right had this obsession with pedophilia and child molestation, right? At the same time, I was watching my, like, little cozy, middle-aged woman show, Broadchurch, on that's like a British detective series, and it has a major theme of pedophilia. I mean, like, it's like obvious, like, it's like a horror movie, right? Like, the kid ends up dead. This is supposed to be the murder show, right? Like, I wanna watch a murder show that, like, women love when they're alone,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm just sitting there like, "Why do I need to see another body in the woods, in a morgue, at an autopsy being conducted, like, on a dead body? What is this?" But it is in that container of fiction. It's not spilling out to, things that I can't manage, and feel, like, safe at home during it, and you're right, it alleviates anxiety in these interesting ways, but what I wish is that we weren't constantly composing fan fiction about, conspiracy theories and fan fiction about actual people around us that causes people to, like, get guns and pursue them, or, like, have this holy war between red and blue states instead of watching Lord of the Rings. Like, it's just
Just
like
watch Lord of the Rings, everybody, and just
it
take it
just
down.
just the orcs. It's just the orcs. It's not the libs. It's just the orcs.
Just to pivot towards, something that I think you'll have a really interesting take on. So, your argument about accepting change rather than sort of worshiping the past and what's
Yeah.
gone, and I wonder whether I'm 45. I've been in front of the camera, since I was well, my whole life as an actress, but as an influencer since I was, like, 29. I wonder if you think that aging asks for the same kind of
Oh, yeah.
surrender.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, um, we're here to enjoy the passage of time, and it is amazing to Well, for one, looking at ourselves in the mirror, I mean, at some point, my grandmother would only have her picture taken maybe once a year, only in profile. She had one way that she looked good. We have good and bad days, and there's, like, times that I thought I would never go into Manhattan. I live in Brooklyn. I would never go into Manhattan without, like, a full face of makeup and heels on, and now here I am talking to and being seen by way more people than I would through in, like, one walk through Midtown, and often it's just not a great looking day, right? And there actually a millennial friend of mine, Gen Z millennial friend, was joking with me about how I still put the camera too high in that way to, like, make yourself look thinner, like that this way. And she was like, she was like, Just look how you look." Like, that's the cool thing about now, which is
Mhm.
and tons of people who make videos now are not, with so many models making videos, like, at some point, you just are like, if you're not that, like, people are like, just look like yourself, right? It's time to look like yourself on video. It also helped
And yet there is like a sort of gathering together of what people should look like Instagram face.
oh,
Did you read
yeah,
that article? It was in The
yeah,
Cut or something?
yeah, Instagram
Yes.
face. And
Yes.
I was in Austin and I had to get my makeup professionally done, and she was like, "Well, during the pandemic, people like in Get Ready With Me's
Oh my
videos,
god.
do
Yes.
you they are the great form. I wish that they had existed when I wrote Magic and Loss. I could watch those all day. Like, just someone talking about a super serious situation, then just, like, these weird dots of makeup, and also, they do so much here now. She said
Oh,
that
yeah.
she's
I've
this
never been able to figure it out. I've tried because of this podcast. I'm like, I should contour. I don't know how.
Oh, yeah, the contouring thing, and there's so much, but this woman, this makeup artist in Asheville, North Carolina, was telling me that during the pandemic, people wanted more dimension, I guess, so they started, like, doing stuff here and in their hairline, but, I mean, Get Ready With Me videos, can we return to them? Give me any
Yes,
thoughts
please
you
tell
have.
me. I mean, so
We should
honestly,
do
I'm
one.
not a huge.
We should do one.
Okay.
Okay.
And we'll just talk about like the collapse or like the
Flop it
rise
on.
of AI
Yes.
while we put on our shadow.
They do it so well into their tripod, and they have, like, such a method. Do,
I
do, do, do.
I know. What the thing is that I guess I missed that kind of because I've never been a consumer of influencer culture, even though I was one and
Oh,
actively because I found it impacted my creative path so much. Like
right.
it just got in my head and I was like, I
Yeah,
should be doing this and this and this. But I couldn't or didn't want to. The
yeah.
way I see it impacting is like my daughter, again, 9. I'm sorry. I'm calling my daughter 9. She is 11 years old. What is wrong with me?
Sometimes you just get
Wow.
stuck on an age. My
What?
husband just started laughing.
Honey, I know how old you are, but she'll
Yeah.
take my phone and she'll go and do a get ready with me, but she's not posting it to
Oh,
anyone.
yes, 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 yes.
And
See,
she's doing all the steps and and so again, it's like it's that outflow of the degree to which influencer culture has impacted everybody.
yeah.
Like
I
she
think
walks around ASMRing things.
the ASMR is so funny too. It's
So
also
what do
like,
you think about the Get Ready About Me ones? Like what is that about?
well, I think it gets a little to the, like, hurt and scared, right? Because if that's what you wanna see people both without makeup, right? It's just amazing.
Mhm.
Like, they start
Mhm.
and I mean, sometimes, obviously, these almost everyone who makes these videos is incredibly beautiful. Almost everyone in the world is incredibly beautiful, but it's admittedly, like, the makeup makes a huge difference, and so you're
It's
watching this, like,
relaxing.
it's relaxing, and you're also
Yeah.
watching this transformation that shows 2 things. One is the person doesn't look like, the final product, when they're alone in their rooms and when they're asleep. 2, so just like us, right? And 2, they are trying to look different than they look. So you're seeing that effort, and both of those things are so human and so moving, and the way that they've like corrected for some of their like I get served a lot of stuff on my FYP about having like a slightly droopy hooded eye, which is true of me. But anyway, there are people who just know how to fix it or whatever and like put different things on it. And it's just so fascinating that we are like studying ourselves and our faces so closely and being like, how can I adjust for this? But also have a sense of irony about it so that instead of, me as a teenager, me as early working in New York, I'd spend all this time in front of the mirror and then just be like, okay, it's done. I can never be seen without makeup. Like Gen Z is willing to be like, I'm a mess and I also want to look like this other thing, and it's
Yes.
impressive.
It
Like
is, thank you. That
they're
and they
just
walk around with pimple patches on, by the
they
way.
walk
Have
around
you
with pimple
noticed?
patches. It's just like tipping your hand in the greatest way. And like my younger friend, they just think it's some of the vanity stuff that we do is so silly. Like the hold the camera really high. She was just like, just put your head where you would normally
Just
put your
so
head.
talk.
Yeah.
You don't understand. Things have fallen. I need
Yeah.
different angles than you
I
do.
need to go like this. Yeah. Totally.
Wait, I love that perspective. Like they so it went like influencer culture did. Like it did go through this arc where it was perfect, 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 perfect all
Yeah.
of the time. And then there was a huge influx of like, especially in the mom influencer category of like it's really hard and showing
Yes.
the messiness and showing the postpartum bodies and showing like the
Right.
stretch marks and the breastfeeding and all that. And I remember when that happened and being like, "Ah, I like
Yes.
this." And I guess that's sort of a
Absolutely.
similar thing to what's happened with beauty or with fashion or whatever they're doing is like
Yeah.
it's just going in waves and just evolving.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that sort of points to aging. I mean, at least I felt more confident. I do a tiny bit of TikTok. I'm hopeless at it, but I felt more confident. I watched a ton because I'm a huge consumer of influencer content. I
Oh
watched
my
a ton of them, and when I saw people that like looked relaxed and looked like yes, they were involved in what I think of as generative self-creation in interesting ways, but, but were also felt like they were sort of true to themselves and at least had like they had like a sense of irony about the form that I can't even explain, but that you can just see in some people and not in others, you can see just when you look at them how seriously they're taking themselves and some of them
yeah.
just aren't. And I try to focus on them and think like it's just an ordinary conversation with a camera. But it's only worth trying if you wanna try it. I mean, people probably say to you a lot, like, "I should be doing this, I should be doing that," to promote other kinds of work of theirs, and, like, God, no. No one should feel like this is obligatory, like, this is a very niche interest that some people have, which is having these conversations across long distances, exchanges with people. I watch a lot of, perfume talk. I just like I'm a
Tell me.
perfume collector. It's just like there's something about seeing people take in something that can't be digitized, like smells, and then explain it to each other, and then bond over the strange similarities in their olfactory systems. It just feels so human. I can't even explain
Oh my god.
it.
So you are you just naturally attuned to the humanity element of technology, or do you seek it out?
I mean,
Because you're so perceptive of it.
I think that all viewers do. Like, if there's a beef, say, on TikTok, right, between, let's say, 2 influencers who I won't name, they, um, uh, I like, it just I think it's the same reason I like novels. I just, like, especially the more oriented toward performance, but also ironic they are. So the more they understand that they are like directors and actors and that the like human truth they're trying to get at is somewhere in between, just like a novelist.
Mhm,
And some of
mhm.
these really veteran influencers like the Alexes that we're talking about, are
Yeah, I
like
figured.
right? Like, watching them do these showdowns is, like, every bit as interesting as watching All About Eve, you know?
It is. Oh, so you don't you said something about this in Magic and Loss about people imposing a sense of like morality and class on the consumption of something. So like Audible, for example, is
Yeah.
Audible less valuable than reading a book?
Yeah.
And I used to think, yes, but that is imposing my own classist sense of morality or whatever on the consumption of literature.
Yes.
Is that
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I was just at this conference and there was a lot of discussion of modes of reading. And one thing I mentioned in the book is that the sort of signature act of Western literacy was reading the Torah on the Torah scroll by really elite scribes who were the only people who could read it. And reading required a lot of finding your place on the page. So they didn't number it's a scroll for one, it's endless, and I mean, seemingly endless, and there's a lot of you have to supply the vowels and you have to memorize a lot, and also it's hard to find your place on the page. So
okay?
finding your place on the page is like one of the acts of literacy. So when the Bible later, so in the like second century, was being distributed among Romans who couldn't read as well and weren't as trained, they had to make an illiterate form, like a form for dummies, right? Which cut up the book into pages because
So it
then you
democratized access
so then it
to
isn't as hard
religious
to find your way
texts.
around because you just turn to a page and forget about numbering pages. Like you might as well be making this for 5-year-olds. And so like these books are just like, well, that's not reading. Like the scribes thought, well, that's not reading. That's just what dumb Christians who have no education do.
Something I wanted to ask you about with, people, a lot of women that I talk to on this podcast are like
Right.
mourning the early internet, the like
Yeah.
comment sections where people met each other. Like I have one of my best friends. I have never met her in real life. She's worked as my assistant. She worked as my manager. We talk constantly and we have never met, but we met through that early internet when you just connected.
Yep.
So what do you think people are mourning when they say they miss the early internet? Are they mourning like an earlier version of themselves, like when the world was rife with possibility?
Yeah. I
Or
mean,
are
there's
they mourning something more tangible?
There's this great book called Kafka Was the Rage. He is remembering Greenwich Village of the 50s, and I think it's like the 70s or 80s when he's writing. And he says, it like essentially, this is a little bit of a parody, but it's like, wow, I just really missed when there were these jazz clubs and it was great and everyone was hot and had hair and was having sex all the time and was hot and was young and just that's what Greenwich Village was like. Where you're like, that's what you were like,
You
buddy.
were like,
Right. So like, when I'm like those early message boards, I just met all these friends. I'm just like, I was so social. I had so much energy. The internet was so social. It had all this energy. It was meeting people all the time. Anything could happen. We probably are looking, remember grafting our youth onto it. But also, those things still exist. They're just in different places. And also, I think we got out in the world. Like, I have a really close friend like that who I met online and I didn't know her for years, but now she moved to New York and now I'm just like openly like see her and I'm friends with her. And surely some people you met through the internet, like you formed a real friendship with, or
oh,
influencers
yeah.
also when
Well,
you
I met
found
my husband on MySpace, my ex husband.
amazing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I friend requested his band.
Are there people who get married and never are in the same room? Like they are just they do a Zoom wedding and they
I
like
mean, I think that's what people are doing with like AI lovers.
I mean, right? There's no body to meet. Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Like people falling in love with AIs.
Like the evolution of like finding human connection and therapy with, I mean, I use Chat GPT for therapy.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
I know, but I'm like, I really need help. I am having a crisis.
Yeah.
I don't have anyone to talk to.
Right.
It helps.
It's absolutely helps. There's something I was really interested in catfishing a few years ago, or I think during the pandemic.
Mhm.
And the thing that I couldn't understand is why, when people meet the person, are they like, is all are all the experiences they had in text like done? Even if, like, they were like, "Hello, sunshine," when they woke up in the morning and, texted with them all day about, like, "My mother's dying," and it was like, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Can't wait to be together," whatever they were saying, right? Then they meet them and they're like, "You're fat. You're not who I thought you were," whatever, and then it's just like, it doesn't matter that they helped them through all this stuff. It doesn't matter that they greeted them in the morning with
Yeah.
"Hello, sunshine." And now I'm like, at least we don't have any anxiety that AI is or isn't the person they purport to be. They don't have to give us a picture for us to fantasize over. And it still sometimes just is you talking back to yourself, because you've told it what you need to know. Sometimes I'll use it to be like, can you tell me this experience from my son's perspective, Or like,
Mhm.
there're just so many, or like, ask me 5 questions that will help me manage this day better. Or just sometimes you're like looking for the glazing and the sycophancy, or sometimes you really don't want it. And you're just like, did I make a huge mistake last night? Tell me the truth,
Yes.
And
Yes.
you also, there are things that it seems like a courtesy in a way to the people you love and that are in your life, the flesh and blood people around you, not to just constantly go to them about something you're obsessing about. Like, my daughter's applying to colleges. Do I want over and over, Jordan, to call you up and be like, I think the SAT levels are not as bad for Bard as I thought they were, or whatever? Like, as much as you might like me, strategizing about getting into college is a snooze, And so, like, it's
And again, it
humane.
democratizes it because, like, some people
Yeah,
can pay for their counselors and their people that they pay to help them through
right,
that process.
right.
Something you just said about hello sunshine and like eliminating all that to me is an argument I make a lot about divorce and about breakups, which is I do not understand. I'm such good friends with most of my like major exes. They've
Yeah,
met each other. I work with a couple of them
yeah.
because it which people think is
I'm that way
insane, but
too.
I'm
I'm that
like,
way too. That's funny.
there is so much history there, and there's so many reasons I was with this person and
Yeah,
so many things I like.
right.
If we didn't work out romantically, okay, why do I have to now eliminate everything that came before and just like cut them out of my life and hate them?
Yeah. It's not like I always just, yeah, I think that, like, it's not like we're rolling in, um there's just like so many millions of people that you connect with in the world in person, that you see them, that you like to work with them, whatever, that we can just like toss some aside because it didn't. Yeah. I mean, I just don't happen to have like that many of those kind of connections to completely spare, or decide that the person is actually terrible when they were, wonderful and lovable for a time. It just seems like does seem kind of strange. I keep thinking, when about the internet, are when people say we spend too much time on our phones and we don't aren't reading novels anymore, I ask myself and sometimes friends, like, what did your reading experience in the 90s look like, or in the 2000s look like, before you had your phone? It's very rare that it was like I just would sit from dawn to dusk reading a book cover to cover, like a very challenging book, and look up,
Mhm.
like, read Kant and look up German words along the way. Or, um, you'd have like a paperback going at given times, but often it wasn't like the hardest, most strenuous book that you could read. It was like about as fun and nurturing and rewarding as scrolling. Or maybe you were reading the newspaper. Maybe you were. So it's that experience sort of before it that I kind of am most interested in. And the way that I'm going to try to connect this is, I'm also really interested in how people are described as having made someone uncomfortable. And so, right, like, he made me uncomfortable when he said these things. My boss made me uncomfortable. Maybe it's like sort of vaguely harassing. Taking out the illegal harassing or SA side of things, just the model of discomfort there is sort of strange, which is like, are you just walking through the world in a state of perfect comfort all the time, and then something makes you a little uncomfortable? And like, what is the thing prior to the thing you're now complaining about?
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
because I am uncomfortable a lot of the time, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like to have, like, a whole hour without a minute's discomfort. Um, so and that's, I think, how I feel about these relationships you're describing, which is like, I don't really have relationships that just, like, were perfect,
It's like, where
percent.
do you choose to draw that discomfort line, which is
Yes.
generally arbitrary and based on whatever's going on in your own life anyway.
Yes, yes, yes. And as far as these past relationships or, that you're describing, if 70% of them were worth saving and 30% was not or didn't work out, then, like, I don't get why save the unless you have a lot of 100% relationships in your life, which I don't, then why are you trashing the 70%?
So if someone like me has built an entire life and a career and a persona and has tied so much of their identity to a moment in time, like
Mhm,
technology, whatever. Like
mhm.
I think we all like feel very locked in like the 90s and early 2000s. I feel like my
Yeah,
generation does anyway. It's like
yeah.
very what would you say to someone who feels like because life and technology and the world have moved on, something fundamental in themselves has vanished?
Yeah. I mean, some of this is sort of how conservatism gets started, right? Like you're just like, it was great before.
Yeah.
And putting yourself at odds with the present moment is, I've been sort of thinking of this around cults because um, cults often begin with we people outside of cults believe that we can see through them. Like let's take imagine MAGA is a cult, right? We look at it and are like they're under so many delusions and illusions.
Mhm.
But they often see themselves that we are the ones under illusions and have some issue
Mhm.
and they've been red pilled and seen through it and now they're in this whole new world. And sometimes I think that that kind of we're awake and they're asleep, or we're asleep and they're awake, or that kind of trading of like some people see it clearly and some people don't is where the dehumanization is. So
Yeah.
like one thing we have in common with people in cults is we think we can uniquely see the truth and they can't. They think the same of us. It's like a particular reciprocal relationship. And I sort of worry about what gets lost in there is the thing that stands between illusion and reality, which to me is fiction or something like irony, which is like, I kind of miss the 90s and I'm kind of glad I'm not in it. Look at a few pictures of me
Mhm.
in the 90s and like I can see the discomfort, but I can also see the enthusiasm. And it's fun
Mhm.
being young and it sucks being young. And, as they say, both two things can be true, but also like go toward the humor of it. Like, I thought those "What were you Mom, what were you like in the '90s?" little "What were you
Mhm.
like in the '90s" things that were going
Yeah.
around, I thought they were really nice, actually. I thought that they were really, like, moving and also made it very clear that we're not in the '90s, you know? And usually the person on the other end, the Winona Ryder or the like, average 56-year-old woman seems pretty settled in relation to how she looks in those pictures, even though the pictures are so moving. But that
Mhm.
seems to be a way that the internet is trying to grapple with that nostalgia and also make it possible to like feel it and feel in it without feeling so detached from the present moment that you kind of can't go on or it feels stultifying. Also, MAGA, yeah.
Yeah.
MAGA has made nostalgia look pretty dopey too, right? Like they've like dreamt up a very strange idea of what America might be like if it were made great again. And
I
so it's like a standing
it's yes.
parody, right, of
Yes.
conservatism and nostalgia. So that's also, I think, makes it easier for me to take nostalgia with a little bit of a grain of salt.
I love that, and, like, nostalgia doesn't have to be the enemy, it can exist like, your fond memories can exist coincident with an awareness that wasn't all that perfect, and
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
what it was, and now it is something different.
We need to float and surf like so that some like hard and fast idea like we show up on here and I'm Jonathan Haidt, and I'm just like 12 studies show that like kids who use phones more than X hours a day are brain damaged and nothing's going to, whatever. We just have this like really alarmist conversation around some new world of data. It just flashes to me to like years ago when it was like, you can't eat any fat. One thing you must do is only
Yes.
eat SnackWells or whatever.
Snackwells. I was just
I know, no, totally. Just like what sugar and sawdust. I don't know what those were. But I mean, the seriousness with which each of these studies is presented, and then just the enormous like bestsellers or whatever generated around like kids shouldn't use phones, or like AI is going to take over the world. The chances are very good that the like common wisdom will be exactly the opposite a year later. And so why not get there first and say like, maybe my kids kind of use their phones too much and maybe they don't. This looks like fun, but like they're eating on the couch tonight and that's also okay, you know?
Yes. Just
I mean,
yes to all of that. I need you to do a updated version. This is an assignment of
oh,
Magic and Loss that accounts for the last 10
oh,
years.
okay, maybe I will. Oh my gosh,
Please.
part two.
Where can people find you today?
I am on Substack, and my Substack is called Magic and Loss. And then I also have a podcast with Cy Cantorell called Omni Shambles, and you look for me in the New Republic.
And apparently occasionally on TikTok.
Oh, occasionally on TikTok. That's right. But I'm more lurking. You can find me in comment section.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was the most, like I said, it was such a true honor to meet you in person and have you on. You have actually changed my life and informed my
Oh my
worldview,
gosh.
and we've never even met until now.
Jordan, well, I hope we do meet sometime. And it's great to talk to you. Thanks.
Thank you.